I am Michael Skoll, President of the Venezuelan American Association of the U.S. I would like to welcome all of you to the first program of our webinar series, Venezuelan Entrepreneurs Around the World. Due to its deep political and social crisis, Venezuela has provoked an unprecedented migratory crisis in recent years. The current exodus of Venezuelans has generated the largest migration crisis in Latin American history, and frankly, one of the largest in the history of the world, perhaps the biggest in the history of the world, not dependent on a specific war, but in the hands of certain people who now run Venezuela. On the other hand, and this is the point of this webinar, this massive flow of talented Venezuelans has resulted also in a wave of entrepreneurs outside of their home country, filled with hopes for a better future away from their roots. Today, I am pleased to welcome three inspiring Venezuelan entrepreneurs: Armando Gonçalves, CEO and founder of Apetoy; Adriana Gomez, CEO and co-founder of Comtoc; Edison Duran, CEO and co-founder of PlelQ Smart Toys; and our moderator, Marcella Shine, head of community of Eureka, which is a startup advisor, who will lead today's conversation and share with us her views on the entrepreneurial environment as an investor and a successful entrepreneur. Marcella is originally, by the way, from Colombia. I would also like to thank our partner for this program, the Venezuelan American Chamber of Commerce of the United States in Miami. I hope you enjoy this program. I'm sure you will. Marcella, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's great to see you. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to bring these amazing entrepreneurs. And without further ado, let's jump in because we're going to learn all about it throughout our talk today. So we're going to jump in, starting with a quick introduction from Armando. Armando, before we queue up your video, please introduce yourself quickly and the company, and then we'll show everyone a quick video.
Sure, thanks. Well, my name is Armando Gonçalves, and I'm Venezuelan entrepreneur. I'm CEO and founder of Apetoy. Apetoy is a service marketplace. If you need to find a carpenter, plumber, electrician, and local service, you can find through our app in Apetoy. Principal difference between Apetoy and another platform is Apetoy Academy, one place to all professionals can get certificates for different companies. So that is Apetoy.
Thank you, Armando. Let's roll the video. We can't hear the music, the volume.
Un mundo que se mueve a cada instante, a cada momento, en el día a día de la constante dinámica de resolver todo al mismo tiempo y contar con la gente indicada.
Yo soy el indicado. Ver que mi negocio crezca y funcione en este mundo de tanta velocidad. Reinventarme todo el tiempo para lograr contactar y captar más clientes.
Saber que la hora y las distancias no son inconvenientes para resolver. Saber que conozco y tengo en mis manos la posibilidad de siempre salir de ese momento incómodo. Así sea un inconveniente grande o pequeño.
Grande o pequeño, no es solo un servicio, no es solo vender y ya. Es la experiencia de poder llegar a muchas más personas y que estén complacidos con mi trabajo.
Encontrar la solución a los problemas o simplemente una mejora. Un equilibrio perfecto entre lo que necesito y lo que deseo.
Lo que el cliente necesite o desee, ahí estamos.
Es encontrar la solución.
Es solucionarles.
Miles de profesionales a mi disposición.
Apetoy, construimos soluciones.
Gracias, Armando. Qué rico cuando nos toque. I can't wait to learn more about your company and how you started it. here I am going back and forth between English and Spanish. Next, I would love to introduce Edison.
Hi everyone, my name is Edison. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a Venezuelan astrophysicist turned into an entrepreneur right now from Santiago, Chile. My company, PlayQ, has been pioneering the use of augmented reality technology to improve early childhood education. Essentially, what we do is that we transform traditional learning resources and making it smart, adding a new dimension of interaction using mobile devices to help kids between 3 and 8 years old to learn better and more autonomously for an effective hybrid learning at early ages.
Thank you, Eddie, so much for all your videos so that everybody could get a good sense for the business.
Graphics y PlayQ presentan Jugando con los Sonidos, los primeros cuadernos interactivos que estimulan y desarrollan la conciencia fonológica.
Ayúdame a encontrar las sílabas.
No. Muy bien. Además puedes seguir el proceso de cada niño en tiempo real. Con Jugando con los Sonidos, los niños y niñas aprenden de forma autónoma, con actividades interactivas con realidad aumentada que hacen un uso responsable de las pantallas. Graphics y PlayQ potencian el aprendizaje a través de la tecnología. Consigue los cuadernos Jugando con los Sonidos y descarga la app. Con Graphics y PlayQ, descubre la magia de aprender.
Gracias. Now let's continue with Andreina and learn about your company, Andreina.
Thank you, Marcela. Thank you, everyone. So my name is Andreina. I am one of the co-founders of ComTalk. I'm currently in Spain, but very much connected to Venezuela. And ComTalk basically works like a medical WhatsApp. We offer a secure and easy way for doctors and patients to communicate. Plus, we help automate that patient's journey from start to end, no matter if the visit is online or in person. So with a virtual assistant supported by AI, we take care of things like reminders of an appointment, or, hey, give me your medical information, or here are the instructions for your appointment today, and afterwards, how did it go? And then the follow-up, are you still feeling okay? Everything's under control. And one of our focus since the beginning has been to reconnect doctors and patients in and outside Venezuela. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Let's take a look at the video.
¿Cómo funciona ComTalk? Un paciente inicia una consulta desde el perfil del proveedor, acepta el consentimiento informado y se abre un chat que va a ser el hilo conductor de esa relación. Completa sus datos personales, realiza su pago en línea con tarjeta de crédito o débito y provee el contexto o razón de la consulta. El profesional entra a la hora acordada. Tiene un área para ver la ficha del paciente, escribir notas y es quien puede activar la videollamada. Ambos pueden enviar mensajes, notas de voz, imágenes o archivos como resultados de exámenes, recetas digitales, etc. El equipo de asistencia virtual está para apoyar tanto a pacientes como a los profesionales de la salud. Se encarga de coordinar las citas, recordatorios, preguntas frecuentes, etc. Entra en app.comtalk.com para saber más.
Fantástico. Mil gracias a todos. Thank you all so much for sharing those with us. Okay, I'm going to make sure everybody's got their video on so that we can talk. I'm going to start from what some of you mentioned is your location. So Michael mentioned earlier that there is a crisis of not only migration happening, but talent leaving Venezuela. And what I found so inspirational from each of you is that as entrepreneurs, you did immigrate, but you're still giving back. Please tell us a little bit about where you are And what I'd love to know why you picked the country that you went to and how you continued running your business from there. Andreina, why don't we start with you?
Yes, thank you, Marcela. Yeah, so we've been personally on this entrepreneurial journey as immigrants for about 2 years. We left at the end of 2018 after the horrible ordeal of the 2017 protests. The truth is we got scared and prepared to leave. We'll always be Venezuelans first, but at the same time we knew that we needed to get on a path for more security, basically, and an additional nationality. And we chose Spain really without knowing much about how it was to live here, but because it offered a quicker path to that, after 2 years of residence, hopefully. We came with a visa that did not allow us to actually work in Spain, but continue our work outside. And so that sort of forced us on the entrepreneurial journey. And when we got here, we actually jumped first on the wellness sector because we thought it was going to be less intimidating than healthcare in a new country that we didn't know much about how it worked. But the truth is, healthcare is where our background is as a team. So eventually we did the pivot. But yeah, basically we left to look for a better opportunities, and that just led us on this path.
Congratulations. That's great. It takes a lot of bravery to do it. So it's great to hear that story. Edison, tell us a little bit about your story in leaving the country and setting up shop.
Yeah, we are based right now in Chile since 2016. This idea started in 2015. Since most of my co-founders and I are from Valencia City in Venezuela, at that time we were facing a lot of problems. We have almost every single day energy cuts, not to mention the internet. So unfortunately, we realized at that moment that if we don't find a way to move the company out of the country, the most probable scenario that's we were to shut down the company. So we realized that there was this amazing program from Chile, from the Chilean government called Startup Chile, whose mission is to find digital talent all across the world and invite them to come to the country, and they give you a seed capital. So for us at that moment was a kind of life-saving boat. So then we came to Chile, and here in this program, we have amazing opportunities to meet the current startup networks. And we find angel investors that allow us to get from the idea to a reality that today is impacting hundreds of thousands of kids right here in Chile.
Amazing, Edison. You're jumping ahead to one of my questions, so I'll come back to a few things you said. Armando, what about you? What's your background on how you got started in Mexico?
Yeah, well, I'm from Caracas, Venezuela. I started the company 5 years ago with a partner, and we think it's very necessary a marketplace like Apetoy to connect professional with clients, because it's so difficult right now in Latin America to connect with this type of professional. We started the company in Caracas. So, and 2 years later, we found an angel investor to trust in Apetoy. With $500,000, we expand the company here to Mexico City. Why Mexico City? Mexico City is a huge city, and it's very important place to our networking, the startup moment. So for that reason, we moved to Mexico City. Right now, the company works in Venezuela and Mexico City too.
Yeah, that's what I admire about all the three of you so much, is that although there is this crisis and there's so much negativity coming out of the country, you're still left with that pride and you're each giving back. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So, Edison, you brought up Startup Chile and seed capital and seed investment through that opportunity. it would be great to hear a little bit about how each of you did seed the company. Again, being external, this is such a unique position to be in, and I love talking to you guys about this. What was the funding process like for each of you? We've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs here in the United States about the difficulty of that early funding money and how important it is so that you can prove your use case and then start to grow, right? So Edison, you started with Startup Chile. Tell us about the process that you went through to get through Startup Chile and get that first investor.
Of course, I think it's always challenging to fundraise for your startup, even if you are in a startup, even if you are in Silicon Valley. It's always really hard, a long process. But especially if you are a newcomer to an ecosystem, if you are a migrant entrepreneur, because you don't know people doesn't know you. So I think that is why it's key to be involved in programs like Startup Chile, because in our case, was key for us that after 10-month program, we were awarded as the first prize of the first place across 100 companies that started this program with us. So that allows us to get some kind of exposure to the ecosystem. And from the crowd, actually, the crowd in that day that we were doing our pitch at the end of our program, we found our first angel investor. So from there, it's all related to getting to the next stage, to the next milestone. And then you get traction and you get trust from more people. And that, but I think that the first person that believes in you is key. In our case, after we left the program, we decided to come back to Venezuela, actually. We still have the hope to create what we were doing back there, back home. And then in a meeting that we have with a foundation back in Venezuela, we find our second investor, a Venezuelan family who decided to invest in us, to invest in this vision, but they suggest something. They suggest, in order for you to succeed, you need to go back to Chile. And from there, you are going to be able to impact the life of many kids. So I think that is key, that the first person that believes in you, that believes in your team, and then you have to prove that your idea, your vision can come true.
Yes, you have to be able to execute in order to continue getting those dollars. So Andreina, what about you? How did you get funding and how did you get started in this process from Spain?
Yeah, so starting in a new country, you need to like build your network from scratch, no, where you don't know a lot of people, and basically the people you know, it's thankfully the diaspora that can connect you to the locals, right? So for us at the beginning, it was one of the co-founders that fronted the money, that invested in the company from actually a previous project that we had worked on before migrating. And then the way for us to get introduced to the local networks of people has been with resources like Edison, through incubators and accelerators. So the first one, because we are a remote first company, we went through an incubator called the Bridge for Billions. And we did their program, which was amazing. We got to meet a lot of people, and then there was a competition for a pitch competition, and we actually got to win that competition and get some money from it. And then we went through other incubators, and we're still getting to know the networks from those. Like Platzi for Startups is another great resource for startups in Latin America, for example. If anyone here is interested, I can really recommend it. And then another one is Tetuan Valley here in Spain. And finally, through that visibility, we eventually got support from the local government here in Valencia, where most of our team is, as an innovator project, product of this 2020 push for digital innovation. They decided to trust in us, and so they gave us also a bit of financial help, and we're immensely appreciative, because we still feel like it's this mix, of like two identities, the Venezuelans and the outsiders or immigrants that we're here, and we're very lucky that they have received us with open arms.
That's great. So just to recap for everybody, there was some initial self-funding from one of the founders, and then a lot of networking that you had to build up in this new country. And then from there, you started to, in essence, get access to programs and dollars because of that buildup that you did. So that's great. Again, I commend you because this is hard enough, as Edison said, whether you're in Silicon Valley or anywhere, it's difficult. But when you're in a new place, I can't imagine the mountains you had to climb. Armando, what about you? How was that process for you?
Yeah, it's so hard. It's the same. It's so hard to raise money in Venezuela. And for us, we was lucky because my partner has a friend, a Venezuelan friend, that was our first angel investor in Apetoy. So was incredible because Venezuela people trust in another Venezuela. I think I have problem with the internet, no? And a Venezuelan trust in another Venezuelan people is incredible. He was our first investor in Apetoy. And with this money, we grew the company here in Mexico City.
Okay.
And that was
So you did Mexico for your proof of concept, and then you expanded into Venezuela?
No, and we started in Venezuela and we grew in Mexico City.
And you grew there.
Venezuela was the first laboratory.
Okay, let's talk for a minute, since we're in Startupville, let's talk a little bit about getting your target audience, particularly in Venezuela. So you did your proof of concept, you got up and running. How did you then start looking at market growth, particularly, again, where things are so difficult right now? I mean, Armando, for you, I'm going to start here, because what I found most interesting about your offer, and Adriana, in some sense yours too, is the trust factor that has to be built in order to either, take a medical appointment through technology, and Armando, in your case, to trust the person coming into your house. I understand your service well. I'm a big fan of, you are the task rabbit, the future task rabbit of Latin America. So talk to me, guys, about the growth in each of your markets, that target audience. How did you attack that once you got things rolling and got out of that seed investment phase of your company?
Yeah, that's true. For example, for our business model, it's so important the trust. In Venezuela, the most violent country in the world, we connect professional to clients, and the professional go to the house clients, and it's so dangerous. But was the first reason to create Apetoy. We need a secure space to find professional. And if you need a carpenter, a plumber, it's very difficult to find a trust professional. And for that reason, we created Apetoy. I think we grow in Venezuela for that reason. The people trust in Apetoy, in trust in the professionals in Apetoy. And I think it's so important that our principal audience was in all type of client. We need this type of service, and homeowners, and they need a plumber, a carpenter, with access internet. Yeah, I think that was the key for our growth.
How difficult is it, and I'm happy to have any of you guys jump in and answer this, but how difficult is customer acquisition in Venezuela right now, right? You're doing it from another country, but how did you, I'm trying to wrap my head around how you did the customer acquisition. We take it for granted that we've got the Googles and the Facebooks and that everything works in a certain way. What was that process for each of you?
Well, yeah, it's different because, for example, for us in Venezuela, it's difficult to pay in dollars, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and something like that, when you earning is in Bolivares. For that reason, we need to create another way to contact to the clients. I think the principal reason or the principal channel to contact with the another client was traditional channels like TV, radio, and so on. And I think that is an important element to trust in Venezuela.
Okay, that's great to hear. That's what I was looking for from you, Armando, because even the service providers may not be as digitally savvy as the actual client. So I was wondering about that. What about for you, Andreina?
Yeah, so for us, in terms of like target audience, we knew where to start, because the diaspora healthcare professionals have a very great need. I come from a family of doctors. That's where like our experience come. Like my uncles, my grandfather, my mom, everyone. No, and I saw them transit two paths. The first one was their patients are leaving, and the second was now they're leaving and they're starting over. They're still remaining connected with their patients through WhatsApp. But of course, and they're doing other things, not medicine, not psychological services or therapies outside, because they have to get the titles validated, they have to get a job. So how could we give them back their practice, even though, and their independence, despite not being really having a path to integrate in that new country? So that was like our first thing, get substitute website and give them a way that's secure, and that's monetizable for them to really reconnect with their patients, right? So that was like our first thing, and then it's wondering how else we can grow in Venezuela, and understanding the issue that right now there's 96% of Venezuelans who are now described in poverty. Only 4% have the funds to do anything or have semi-good internet. And so that is a challenge right now that we're trying to like overcome and see, okay, how do we do it? And now we're experimenting, let's say, with NGOs, and give them our products so they can engage, and so we can, it's the thing of, okay, you have to focus on sectors, but at the same time, you have like a social impact little heart, and you don't want to leave anyone else behind. So it's like that, I don't know, it's like a Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. I don't know how it is. You have like that dichotomy of how do you do this. So yeah, like defining a target audience in a country like Venezuela, it's tricky because most people are focusing on this many people, but then how do we do with the rest? So that's our thing. And then we have another issue that it's like, okay, but we're in Spain, so um, we need to get local partners that really understand the Spanish healthcare sector, so we can also engage here, because this is where we have the company incorporated, this is where we have all the easiness of payments, and everything can be so easy. But for healthcare, you need trust. And if I come to you and you hear me talking in a different accent, even if it's still Spanish, there's like a layer of it shouldn't be, but it happens. We're human. So yeah, those are challenges that we are constantly trying to experiment and overcome in terms of target audience.
So you're using a lot of partnerships. You're looking at NGOs as partners to get some of the audience into the application. That's great. Edison, what about on your end, on the educational side? Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in Venezuela from a parent's point of view, and how you're increasing your audience adaptation there with the technological challenges that everybody's talking about.
Well, I think we are all aware, very aware about the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, but something that is not usually talked that much is the collapse of the educational system. Just to give you a hint, every single year, more than 300 schools are closed. And if you look at 100 kids that should be attending to a school on daily basis, only 36 of them are able to attend to a school. And that was even before the COVID-19 pandemic started. So you can imagine the size of this problem. In our case, we are not actually selling any products of PlayQ in Venezuela. But we are doing is our best effort to get some of our products and technologies to those who need it most. Right now, we are with our local partners here in Chile. We are getting or putting together significant donation of books to the most vulnerable Venezuelan kids. And we are doing this partner with local organizations, educational organizations who have the network to assure that those books are going to get to the hands of those who need it most. And I'm not talking about, cutting edge technology using, like we do, AI to support the learning process. No, I think I am aiming for a more humble goal. I think that right now, having a kid with a book and a pencil in their hands could make a difference for them, for their lives. So we're trying to do this. I can't talk too much about this. You know why? Probably you know why. But yes, the way we are trying to support and to contribute in this case in Venezuela is not by selling our products, so making them free and making donation to several organizations back home.
Great. Let's talk for a second about business model. Edison, why don't we start with you? I'll go reverse the around the clock the other way. Talk about how you established your business model and how many iterations it took before you were really convinced that this was the way to go. I think as entrepreneurs, some people think that, you know, it's a one-time, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to charge, this is the pricing, I did my competitive research, and I'm going out with this. And those of us that have done it know that it takes many iterations and more coupon codes than we like to admit before we figure out what the model is. So walk us through that on your end, on the education side, Edison.
Yeah, absolutely. You, as an entrepreneur, you don't have to be afraid to pivot and to test several ways to monetize your idea. We started trying to sell in through B2C business, mostly direct sales, but it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of money. So we figured out that the best way to grow as fast as possible was doing these B2B partnerships with local companies who already have developed their commercial channels. They have their point of sales, they have even their sales force, right? So we figured out that if we find these companies in which we could add what they don't have, in this case, the technology and the knowledge to make this digital transformation of their value proposition, we are going to get a sweet spot. That's what we are doing right now. We are helping legacy business who are in the educational space. It could be educational publishers, it could be toy manufacturers, etc., but related to the educational space, and offer years and years of R plus D, of our R plus D, to get a partnership with them for a co-branding strategy. So that allows us to get brand awareness for free. And we only charge them for a revenue share once they sold their, in this case, for example, the smart books. So in this way, it's a win-to-win situation because we are getting this multi-year contract with these companies in which we are going to focus on develop more technology or better technology, more content, and they are taking care of, manufacture, all the logistics, and even sales. So in that way, we complement each other. And that has been, in our case, the best way to grow.
Thank you, Edison, for walking us through that. Andreina, what did your model look like and what transpired to get to where you got to today from a business model perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially because you're already assuming that you change it so many times and you do so many tests. So that has been our path. We began last year in the middle of that Corona panic era with just like a way to help. So it was a platform for volunteer doctors. Everything was free and we were just doing that. And then eventually we knew, okay, we have to pivot to like private healthcare. These doctors are asking for it. So how can we do it? We started, getting sponsors so sponsors could pay for the consultations from patients. Then we said, okay, no, let's give doctors the freedom to set their own prices. And so we add a commission to their price, and that way there's less friction. Before that, we thought, okay, they pay a subscription because that's the model that is successful in, let's say, the US or Europe for the service, like a SaaS service. And then, right now we're staying with the commission because until they see more movement in the platform, there's a lot less friction with that, and they're more open to joining. And then on the patient side, we're right now testing, okay, there's a lot of people who don't feel like their health question is worth, let's say, $30 a consultation, which is what the doctors charge, or even more. And so we're thinking, okay, what if we can do like ask just one question, and that is like a smaller price, let's say $7, $6, and then you know, that will encourage the patients to their questions. Other models are that the patients subscribe to a system, and they get online consultations every month. But then how do you do that in Venezuela, where the payment infrastructure is like, you know, you cannot do that, those recurring payments? So, you know, these are excellent questions. I love that we're sharing them here openly for others as well. And yeah, so right now we add a commission to the consultations of the doctors, and that's how we're managing it.
Are family members living externally able to pay for the medical appointments of their family members in Venezuela? Do you have a secure way for that?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, that's fantastic. And then there's a question for you specifically from Omero. He wants to know how you're dealing with local regulations related to medical practice. What hurdles did you have to go through to get that accomplished?
So I guess he's talking about how does a doctor from, you know, let's talk about the case of a Venezuelan doctor that is in Ecuador right now, and they have not gotten their title validated. I guess he's talking maybe about that. Yeah, so we studied that with the Inter-American Association for Telemedicine and with another law firm to like really get in it. And the fact is, as long, you know, this doctor can do, let's say, healthcare orientation, medical orientation, which is basically what it's primary healthcare. I have a headache, here's what you should do. You know, I have a sinus infection, here are some tips, this is what's happening with you so you understand it. And that's what they do already on WhatsApp. And that's what they're allowed to do. What they would not be allowed to do would be to send, let's say, a recipe, a digital prescription. But if their title was validated, they can do that with patients all over.
So it's medical advice, but no prescriptions are being delivered.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But medical advice constitutes most of the online visits anyway, because they're like very quick questions.
Got it. Thank you. Armando, what's your business model and how did you arrive to it?
Yeah, like Tax Rabbit, we are a B2C business model, okay? But in our case, COVID-19 changed the game for everything. We moved to B2B model, okay? And we create a SaaS software, a software as a service for professionals. Right now, each professional in our platform can use the Apetoy technology to administrate their business and for administrate their employees, their clients. We create a great technology in Apetoy so we can put an offer to each professional in the platform, like a SaaS software.
Okay, so you are charging the individuals, right? So if I go to hire a carpenter, that payment is going through your app to the carpenter, and then they've already paid you for access to the technology, so you're not taking a percent, or are you taking a percent of the transaction too?
It depends the country, because in Venezuela it's so difficult to pay through internet because credit card, debit card is impossible. And in Venezuela case, our professional pay us a monthly fee for being in the platform. In Mexico City, the people pay through the app. We take a commission, a 10% of commission for each service.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, Armando, because that's a great example to everybody watching as to how you've had to adapt your businesses in order to continue to work with your home country and make these services possible there. So I'm sure that it was a lot more complicated than we're making it sound here, but I really commend you all for continuing to give back and pull for your country while you're building out these businesses. There's a question from Sophia Tong asking how easy was it to enter your industry in another country? And I'm going to pop that question a little more and ask about when you were going to, each of your respective countries, did you look at the competition and say, I don't know, there's somebody else there? Or did you have an idea in mind and say, I'm going to do this because I know Venezuela needs it and I can build it here too? So I'd love to hear a little bit about, not only was it easy to start within your industry, but how did you decide that you were going to go ahead and dive into this water, into this deep pool of entrepreneurship, thinking about Venezuela as an audience that you wanted to serve? So I'm going to start with Armando. We'll keep going back around the clock.
Yeah, but okay, in my case, my opinion is the competition is great, okay? Because in Venezuela, one issue for us was um, here is that is Apetoy. It's in a marketplace. You can find professional, and the people say, "What? Through the internet and through the app?" It's so difficult to explain what we do. In things here in Mexico, the people, it's like tax travel in United States. It's like you want to fix, and it's easy to the people understand our business model. So in my case, the competition was great. Being a CEO entrepreneur and aboard your country is difficult, no? And your networking is zero, and you don't have any people to asking for different things. But and I think in our case, in Apetoy specific, was great because the people knows our system, the professional knows our system. In Venezuela, when we try to get a new professional for the platform, okay, you receive a notification in your app. What? What an app? It's so difficult. And yeah, no. And
Yeah,
here
no,
in
I mean,
Mexico,
shifting mindset's always the hardest, right? So you would say that Mexico, the users in Mexico were more mobile friendly. It allowed you to open the market and then figure out Venezuela because you wanted to provide the certification and the ability to create jobs,
yeah.
in essence, for your country.
Yeah, no, it's great. Um, I'm happy for that. And right now in Venezuela, we actually work with 1,000 professional active each month. Is a lot of professional in the platform. So it's great to put money in the table for each professional in Venezuela.
Oh, that's great, Armando. Andrina, what about on your end? How did you look at entering the market, being somewhere else, and was competition something you were concerned about because Spain's a major market for these things?
Yeah, so I like Armando's example because we had the same experience of the barrier of digital literacy, both on the doctor side and on the patient side. So we've had to really, I mean, this is not something that's like so scalable at this point where we're like really sitting down with them and like teaching them, especially because you think about many doctors who are, let's say, in their 50s, with it's very young, but they are like terrified of this thing and
I'm
the
sure
computer and the, yeah,
listening is laughing about the early days of the pandemic where we had to teach our parents to use Zoom, right? So I'm sure you went through the same thing, 50x, yeah.
yeah, you say, okay, open a new what do you call it, window. What's a window? And you're like, okay, don't worry, I'm gonna sit down with you, I'm gonna teach you, because you still have at least 30-40 years of practice, and if you don't jump on this wave, you're gonna be left behind. And so I'm interested in help, I mean, we're interested in helping them, and of course the patient as well. So that is like a big barrier that we're trying to see constantly. How can we make this easier? How can we just help them jump in? No, so that was a big thing. And then
We have digital literacy as a constant roadblock to getting entrepreneurs that were Main Street and non-digital moving online. So I can really relate to the difficulty in that.
Absolutely. And so, well, how do we teach them so they get less afraid and they actually start using it? That's one. And then the other thing, yes, about the competition. So we've always tried to study the other companies that are here, because clearly there are some, and find the whole. So we, because our background is mostly like private healthcare, it's what we have mostly in Venezuela and actually many Latin American countries. We found a hole here because private healthcare professionals are getting paid by the insurance or even by these other telemedicine companies just like €4 per consultation. So they see a patient, they talk to them for 20 minutes, and they get €4, which is, I mean, to me, it's outrageous. And the patient doesn't know. They think I'm paying €25 a month and I'm getting all of these infinite services. And the actual reality is, that doctor's experience is worth money. I mean, I'm not saying let's, make it super expensive, but it's definitely worth more than that. So we're focusing on that, on those professionals that right now we're seeing, they're even like protesting and trying to meet with government to change these laws around insurances and all that, and get to that frustration. So I think that's where we can fit and test.
Thank you, Adriana. Edison, what about you? I mean, education and virtual support for kids, certainly in underrepresented communities, is such an important and growing sector. Tell us a bit about what you looked at when you were entering the market from a competitive standpoint.
Well, Marcela, to be honest with you, in our case, it has been like a blue ocean strategy, since we have this huge advantage to be first movers in the space. So what actually we have been seeing is that we have been inspiring another companies to come to this segment, what we call augmented education. So we actually have been mentoring other companies who are developers, not necessarily in EdTech, because we think that there is a huge opportunity to make a real impact here. Because when you are aware that in Latin America, if you compare the growth rate of the access to formal education and the growth rate to smart devices, could be smartphones or tablets, you will get to the conclusion that right now, there are many more kids with access in their families, of course, don't necessarily have to be their own device, but they have access in their families to a supercomputer that the number of kids who have access to this formal educational system. So this could be a huge problem or could be a huge opportunity, because if we use those mobile supercomputers to support the learning process in a meaningful way, in a responsible way, it will, imagine how much better it will be that if, instead of having a kid looking at YouTube for hours, looking at random videos out there, you could have that kid solving logical puzzles, achieving pedagogical objective, doing learning activities based on curriculum. And even if you're not attending to school, they will have a huge leap in terms of the cognitive development. So what we're trying to do is to get as many markets as possible doing these partnerships and making, let me say this, the most advanced learning resources in the region and the cheapest one, because that is key for us. For example, a competitor from us could cost even four times more than our products, even they are traditional products. So because we think that if we use these exponential technologies for a greater good, that will pay off for society, not only from the business point of view, but for society. And we want to be those guys with the vision and the knowledge and hopefully the networks to increase that impact, especially in the early years, because all the knowledge that we have is that if you make a difference in the early years, you will make a difference for life, in the life of those kids.
Yeah, Edison, I already told you I have young kids, so I can't wait to talk to you about all of this. Adriana, did you want to make a comment? And then I want to look to the future with my next question to each of you.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment to Edison's intervention. Like I personally remember growing up, I had this disc that I would put in the computer, and they were educational, but they were like sort of gamey. Like I remember like antique civilizations or dangerous animals, and I would be learning and I would be playing games with it, and I can still remember, you know, the music and the sounds and the text and the audio from the explanations. And I just think that, of course, now this would be, you know, with Playku, a much better way, a much more fun way to learn that can definitely have an impact. So I congratulate you on what you're doing.
We have a few minutes, so I want to think to the future. Jay Bolivar asked, what are the biggest growth barriers in your current stage? And have you sized, this is a pretty big question for 5 minutes. So I'm just going to go with that because I'd love to hear about what your growth plans are. And if you could access one thing or change one key thing in Venezuela in particular, what would be that, you know, is it internet, is it technology, is it the internet, is it the banking system? Like, what would be the biggest shift that you would like to see happen so that you can continue to infiltrate your services inside of Venezuela in particular? Andreina, I'm going to start in the middle and start with you, and let's try to keep it to about a minute each so that we can get in any other questions.
I mean, for me, right away, the banking system, like figure out how we can get paid for the services and then how we can pay back, let's say, our providers, our healthcare providers, in an easy way without having this complication with, like, you know, conversion rates. And it's a nightmare, no, especially because you're a company outside. At least we don't have still a company in Venezuela, so we're like figuring out creative ways to do that. That would be huge, and I know it would be huge for just about anyone. And then, you know, for us is figuring out, again, I mentioned 96% of people, at least I'm talking about Venezuela, right? 96% of people really are in the poverty line. So how can we make something that does not leave them behind, that they can get healthcare? Because there's the public healthcare system is crumbling down. So where can they go? So that is like our main problem that we're looking to solve right now in Venezuela. Those are our main roadblocks and exciting challenges.
Thank you, Andreina. Armando.
Yeah, of course. Our main problem in Venezuela is the banking system. It's impossible to pay anything in Venezuela. But in other hand, for us, it's great to, in our case, our professionals are people don't have a smartphone, people that don't have access to internet. We create a new way to get the service through SMS and through Venezuela, and it was incredible for us to all people get a new job. I think we can change a little bit in something in Venezuela with Apetoy Academy. Apetoy Academy is an institution where the professional can certify with different skills like carpenter, plumber, electrician, and so on. And I think that is a huge way to support in Venezuela.
Thank you, Armando. Edison, what's the biggest hurdle that you think you have to pass through to continue growing, particularly in Venezuela?
We need to develop a technology that has more than 2,000 years from being created. I think we need in Venezuela to get back the technology of democracy to allow to grow and to see what we are doing in a massive wave in our country. I foresee that if that happens, and I'm sure that it will happen someday, I think that we are going to experience a quantum leap into the future. We are getting back the last 2 decades. And I think that projects like Starlink from Elon Musk, for example, we allow us to get all the people connected in a very quick way. And if you have this infrastructure, and we're talking about broadband internet connection, the possibilities are endless, not only for education, but to unleash this entrepreneurial mindset that the Venezuelan usually have, and to get back 2 decades. So I think that if we want to improve not only education, but everything in Venezuela, we need that technology that is called democracy back.
Thank you, Edison. Again, I commend all of you for staying tied to your home country. It's I know that as a Colombian who grew up here, I still look to connect myself and bring jobs and bring help to my home country. And I'm so grateful that Colombia has advanced. And I can only wish that you can all sit back from whatever country you're sitting in and look in on how much you've given and how much you've helped develop jobs, education, health, and wellness into your country. So I thank you for your efforts. And Michael, I will hand this back to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Lowry, if you put my video on. There we are. Okay, I want to thank Armando, Andreina, Edison, and Marcela for what has truly been an inspiring and educational panel. I also want to thank our hardworking association team for putting this event together. And if you'll allow me, I want to make an additional comment about what I detect as a sub-theme of this webinar, a word that has been used by several people, including Marcela, the word diaspora. The Venezuelan community in all of these countries, the US, Chile, Colombia, Spain. The diaspora is an important tool to think about. It's a way to prosper in another country. It's a way to keep the idea of a better Venezuela alive. You're transporting part of your country and you are acting as part of your country. And I think it's an important thing to keep an eye on the progress of the Venezuelan diaspora, what it's doing, how it's progressing. And I would also suggest that the Venezuelans, as part of this diaspora, try to learn from the experiences of others who have gone through not the same, but maybe parallel emigrations. The Cubans, for example, in the US much earlier, in the last 2 centuries ago, the Italians, the Jews. The whole idea of a diaspora is, I think, a powerful source of commercial, political, economic, and psychological support. And I don't know if we've all done enough thinking and writing about this very interesting phenomenon. Okay, that's my editorial view. All of you have really produced, led me to be talking about this. I want to thank all of you for participating, and I look forward to seeing you on our future programs. Now, speaking of the future, we would be very interested in your views on what we have done, especially your suggestions on the kinds of programs and guests we should feature. VAUS, that's the Venezuelan American Association of the US, will be sending out a survey questionnaire shortly. If you can't wait for that, you can send any comments to Lina, L-I-N-A, at Andean US, that's Andean-US.com. Finally, I'd like to very much thank the Venezuelan American Chamber of Commerce in Miami for being our partner in all this. Thank you very much to all, and let's get together again at one point. Bye-bye.